Knucklehead, dumb guy, very stupid person, terrible, numbskull, major loser, stubborn mule, nasty, Trump hater, total and complete moron. These are just some of the ways Donald Trump has described the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell.
I think he does a terrible job. He's costing us a lot of money.
Trump has been lashing out against the Federal Reserve, reportedly floating the idea of firing Powell.
I'm also told that the president pointed to a piece of paper that he said was a draft, basically firing letter.
Because he wants him to lower interest rates. Trump's take, they've been stubbornly high after having climbed from pandemic lows, steady at 5.5% for more than a year and still hovering only 1 percentage point below that today.
So the Federal Reserve kept interest rates unchanged.
Trump feels high rates are holding the economy back. He also thinks the U.S. economy is behind, as per his own list of countries around the world with lower rates, and there's the U.S., an embarrassing 35th place. You can also see he's added his own comments that the U.S. should be here, right around the 1% mark, and Jerome, you are, as usual, too late. This, of course, is now a thing, with Trump calling on too late Jerome Powell to resign immediately and be replaced with, well, anybody.
Too late. He's always been too late, hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago.
But this isn't new. This dysfunction between the president and the chair of the Federal Reserve goes all the way back to Trump's first term as president, and it looks to be coming to a head now.
So the way to think about this, I think, is that the independence of the Fed, the Federal Reserve, is sort of crucial to the global economy. So what Trump is doing is he's undermining that.
He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in.
So we have to start here with how Trump has most recently framed his fight with Jerome Powell, because Trump says he's surprised Powell was appointed and that Biden put him in. On both counts, Trump is either mistaken or he's lying, because here's the day Powell was nominated for the job.
As president, there are a few decisions more important than nominating leaders of integrity and good judgment to hold trusted positions in public office. And few of those trusted positions are more important than the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
During Trump's first term, he would have seen an ally in Powell. He was a Republican and presented an opportunity to somewhat break with tradition by not simply reappointing the pick of the previous administration. In this case, Trump released Janet Yellen, an Obama pick, after just one term.
I am confident that Jay has the wisdom and leadership to guide our economy through any challenges that our great economy may face.
But this optimism would only last about 8 months, because Trump was about to launch a trade war with China. And Trump's preferred weapon of war, tariffs, can cause inflation, because you're literally adding taxes on imported goods. You're making things more expensive. The key tool the Federal Reserve has to tamp down inflation, increasing interest rates. So people spend less and prices drop. So if Trump expected his new appointee to change course, to stop increasing interest rates, he was about to be sorely disappointed. Rates kept going up under Powell's leadership, and it was around here Trump began openly entertaining the idea of firing the man he had just installed.
Over the course of 2018, President Trump was actually sort of restrained at first. And then by the end of 2018, Trump was actively considering firing him. But I think it took several months before Trump really started to ramp things up on Powell in 2018. But their relationship has never really been the same since then.
The president, in effect, suggesting that the Fed doesn't know what it's doing.
He took some aim over the weekend at Fed Chair Jay Powell.
I don't think he's done a good job.
Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve failed again. No guts, no sense, no vision, a terrible communicator.
Now, a lot of this hostility would eventually fade into the background. Interest rates started going down in 2019, and they absolutely crashed in 2020 with the pandemic and the recession. Joe Biden would take office here, and he would keep Powell as Federal Reserve Chair. But once Trump returned to office, so did the vendetta. Because since his inauguration at the start of this year, the Fed rate has remained unchanged, despite Trump's many demands for Jerome Powell to do as told.
The president is not unique. Most presidents want lower interest rates. He wants the economy healthy going into the midterms. And one way you ensure a healthy economy in the short term is lower rates that'll generate a ton of economic activity.
I feel I should point out that US interest rates aren't quite the outlier Trump makes them out to be. You know, it's easy to make the US look like it's lagging behind when you simply stop counting at whatever rate the US is at. But also, I'm not sure why you'd think to compare the US economy with that of Papua New Guinea, Seychelles, or Botswana. If you compare the US to G20 and OECD countries, you'll actually find its central bank rate squarely in the middle of the pack. And maybe more than most, the US Federal Reserve might have an especially good reason to keep interest rates on the high side, out of an abundance of caution.
I don't think we can say, which way this will shake out. I think there's a great deal of uncertainty about, for example, where tariff policies are going to settle out. So, ultimately, we think our policy rate is in a good place to stay as we await further clarity on tariffs.
You hear what he's saying there, right? Effectively telling Trump, you're the reason rates are high. So for as long as we don't know what the heck your next tariff-related move is, I'm not sure how you expect us to pivot the entire American economy because you want us to. But Trump is like, I still want you gone. And all this talk of a supposed draft of a letter addressed to Powell doing just that, first reported on by the New York Times, but which Trump denies the existence of, it represents the closest Trump has ever come to forcing Powell out of a job. So, can it be done? Can Trump fire Powell?
Legally, it is unclear exactly what the president can do to remove Jay Powell.
I don't think it would be easy. I think he'd fight it. He will challenge. It'll go to the courts. And it's not really knowable because no one's ever fired a Fed chairman.
The expert consensus does indeed seem to be that Trump can't fire Powell as effortlessly as he might fire a typical employee. The Supreme Court actually weighed in on this, pointing out that while Trump does have the power with great latitude to fire the leaders of independent federal agencies, the Federal Reserve is different, it being a uniquely structured quasi-private entity. And the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 seems to strongly suggest that the chair of the Federal Reserve should serve the entirety of their term unless sooner removed for cause by the president. The key words there being for cause, as in you can't just fire the chair because you don't like them, or even because you disagree on monetary policy. Cause is a much more complex legal term.
If you think about the workplace that you or I work in, if someone is fired for a cause, it means that they screwed up really, really badly. And that really is, or really can be, as broad or as narrow as the president and the courts want it to be.
It appears Trump himself understands this because he has launched a different attack on Jerome Powell on a matter that has nothing to do with interest rates at all.
The administration believes that Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, has mismanaged these renovations, including going over budget by quite a bit.
So let me explain, because maybe you're like, what are we talking about now? Renovations? So the Fed is in the middle of a massive renovation involving its two main buildings in Washington. The project was given the green light during Trump's first term in 2017, with the overall price tag settling 6 years later at $1.9 billion, which might sound like a lot, except it's actually since ballooned even more to $2.5 billion. And Trump blames Powell.
He's doing a little renovation for $2.5 billion of the Fed, building a renovation, and they have a close to $900 million cost overrun, and it's a shame.
And this, as you might expect, has turned into a political issue.
They're trying to argue there was some kind of malfeasance or poor management of the renovations that warrants a for-cause removal. That's the cause.
Are you completely ruling out the idea of firing Jerome Powell?
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud. I mean, it's possible there's fraud involved with the $2.7 billion renovation.
We should be clear, Trump has provided no evidence of fraud, but he and other Republicans seem to be wondering, how the heck else do you spend $2.5 billion on a renovation? The Fed has had to push back against the accusation that it is spending too lavishly, saying it's limiting where it can the use of marble, that no, there's no new VIP dining room, no VIP elevator, no new water features, that these buildings haven't been comprehensively renovated in nearly 100 years, and that they've had to deal with some unexpected issues, like surprising amounts of asbestos and toxic soil. But no matter what you think of the price tag, the experts we spoke to told us that this renovation and its cost could open up a new pathway for Trump to fire Powell.
Most lawyers I've spoken to do not think that would qualify as cause in the kind of traditional sense, but would it be enough of a fig leaf that Trump uses it and then it sees what happens in the courts? It certainly is.
So is Trump on the cusp of firing the man he first contemplated firing nearly 7 years ago? Maybe. He can certainly try. And if he does, it's a case that could eventually be heard by the Supreme Court. But if he doesn't, it'll be a simple waiting game. As it stands right now, Powell's term is set to end May 2026.